In 1992, when I was 33 years old, I interrogated a Bigfoot, not questioned, not interviewed. Interrogated as in a formal FBI interrogation of a suspect in federal custody. What it told me about humanity, about our true nature and our future, was so disturbing that the information was immediately classified at the highest levels. I've kept that secret for 33 years. But I'm old now, and some truths need to be told before they die with the people who know them. My name is Daniel Cross. In September 1992, I was a senior special agent assigned to the Behavioral Science Unit at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. I'd spent the previous 8 years profiling serial killers, studying criminal psychology, and teaching interview techniques to new agents. I was good at reading people, at understanding what made them tick, at getting them to talk when they didn't want to. That's why they called me when the National Guard brought in something that shouldn't exist. The call came at 2:47 a.m. on September 18th, 1992. I remember because I was watching the tail end of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno when my pager went off. The number displayed was one I'd never seen before. A Washington, D.C. area code followed by an extension that suggested either the Pentagon or somewhere equally serious. When I called back from the secure line at my home office, a voice I didn't recognize told me to be at Quantico's North Gate in 45 minutes. No explanation, just coordinates for a facility I'd never heard of. I dressed quickly, standard bureau attire, dark suit, white shirt, conservative tie. Outside, my 1989 Ford Taurus was covered in September dew. I drove through the pre-dawn darkness of Northern Virginia, past familiar landmarks that suddenly felt foreign. The radio played a Nirvana song, something from their new album that my daughter had been playing constantly. The normalcy of it felt surreal given what was about to happen. At Quantico's North Gate, 2 men in civilian clothes but military bearing checked my credentials 3 times before directing me to follow their Humvee. We drove deep into the restricted training areas, past the firearms ranges and tactical villages, into sections of the base I'd never accessed in my 5 years stationed there. Finally, we descended into what appeared to be a maintenance entrance, but was actually an elevator shaft leading to an underground facility. The complex below was something out of a Cold War thriller. Concrete corridors lit by fluorescent tubes, armed guards every 50 feet. The air had that recycled quality you get in submarines or bunkers. We walked for what felt like 10 minutes before arriving at a conference room, where 12 people were already gathered around a metal table covered with photographs, documents, and what looked like biological samples in sealed containers. That's where I met Dr. Sarah Martinez, a biologist from Johns Hopkins with previous work at MIT. She was maybe 40, sharp-eyed and clearly exhausted. Next to her sat a U.S. Army colonel whose nameplate read Hendris. 2 scientists from what I later learned was DARPA. 3 more military officers and several people in suits who never introduced themselves but had that particular stillness that suggested CIA Agent Cross, Dr. Martinez said without preamble. 3 nights ago, a National Guard unit conducting night maneuvers in the Cascade Mountains of Washington state detected an anomalous heat signature during a routine thermal imaging exercise. They tracked it for 6 hours before surrounding and containing what they initially thought was a fugitive or perhaps a bear. She slid a photograph across the table. Even now, 33 years later, I can see that image perfectly. It showed a creature approximately 7.5 feet tall, covered in dark reddish-brown hair, with a face that was simultaneously human and utterly alien. The bone structure was massive, a pronounced brow ridge, a flat nose, a jaw that looked capable of crushing bone. But the eyes, God, The eyes were looking directly at the camera with an expression I'd seen hundreds of times in interview rooms. Calculation mixed with fear. It didn't run. Colonel Hendrick said when they had it surrounded, it raised its hands and knelt down, like it understood what was happening, like it was surrendering. The room felt smaller. Suddenly, I looked at the other photographs spread across the table. Footprints measuring 17 inches long. Hair samples under microscopes. Dental impressions showing teeth adapted for an omnivorous diet. Measurements indicating the creature weighed approximately 650 pounds of what appeared to be almost pure muscle. "You brought me here to interrogate a Bigfoot," I said. It wasn't a question. "We brought you here because in 3 days of captivity, this specimen has demonstrated clear intelligence," Dr. Martinez replied. "It responds to spoken commands. It shows problem-solving abilities. Yesterday, it used sticks to draw geometric patterns in the dirt of its holding cell agent Cross. This isn't just a large primate. This is something that thinks." One of the DARPA scientists, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, leaned forward. "The military wants to conduct a full anatomical study." That's a euphemism. They want to put it on an examination table and open it up to see what makes it tick. "We have a week to prove it's worth more alive than dead," Dr. Martinez said. And I heard the desperation in her voice. "If you can establish communication, if you can demonstrate that this creature has language, has culture, has personhood, then maybe we can convince them to let us study it long term instead of..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Where is it now?" I asked. "Holding cell D7, 20 feet by 20 feet. Reinforced concrete, observation cameras, climate controlled. We've been feeding it fruits, vegetables, some meat. It eats everything. It drinks water. It sleeps. This morning it tried to speak. That got everyone's attention." Colonel Rick shifted uncomfortably. "What did it say?" I asked. "We're not sure." The vocalization was almost human, like someone with severe damage to their vocal cords trying to form words, but the intent was clear. It was trying to communicate. I stood up. "I need to see it now." They led me through more corridors, down another level, past security checkpoints that required retinal scans and badge combinations. The holding area was essentially a modern prison block, but instead of cells full of criminals, there was just one occupied room at the end of a long hallway. Through the observation window, I saw it for the first time in person. The photographs hadn't captured the sheer presence of the thing. It sat on the concrete floor in the corner, knees drawn up, massive arms wrapped around its legs. The smell coming through the ventilation system was earthy, musky, but not unpleasant, like a forest after rain. As I watched, it lifted its head and looked directly at the observation window at me, and I knew with absolute certainty that there was a thinking being behind those eyes. "I'll need a proper interrogation room," I said. "Table, 2 chairs, recording equipment, and I go in alone, Agent Cross. That thing could snap you in half." "It won't," I interrupted, "because it wants to talk. Look at it. That's not aggression. That's hope." 6 hours later, I sat across a metal table from a creature that shouldn't exist. It was even larger up close. I estimated 7 feet 8 inches tall. Every inch of it radiating potential violence that it was choosing not to use. Between us sat a tape recorder, the reels turning slowly. Preserving every word, I folded my hands on the table and began with the same question I'd used to start 1,000 interrogations. "Do you have a name?" The creature's eyes held mine for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 15 seconds. In my years at the Bureau, I'd learned that silence was a weapon. Most people couldn't stand it, felt compelled to fill it. But this being, this impossible thing sitting across from me in a government interrogation room, seemed perfectly comfortable with the quiet. It was studying me just as carefully as I was studying it. Then it opened its mouth, and what came out was like nothing I'd ever heard. The sound started deep in its chest, rumbling up through a vocal apparatus that was clearly different from human anatomy. The first attempt was just noise, a kind of groaning growl that made the hair on my arms stand up. But then it tried again, and I heard something that might have been a word, non-name. My heart was hammering, but I kept my face neutral. This was still an interrogation, and showing too much emotion would shift the power dynamic. "Yes," I said slowly, clearly. "Name? What do I call you?" The creature's massive hands, and they were hands, not paws, with opposable thumbs and what looked like the calluses of a lifetime of tool use, gripped the edge of the metal table. The table groaned under the pressure, and I saw its knuckles were scarred, marked with old injuries that had healed into thick ridges of tissue carcaline. The name came out mangled, but unmistakable. I wrote it down on the legal pad in front of me, letting the scratch of pen on paper fill the space between us. Behind the two-way mirror, I knew Dr. Martinez and the others were losing their minds. We'd just established first contact with a cryptid that was supposed to be either extinct or mythological, Carlin, I repeated, and something changed in its expression. Relief, maybe recognition that it had been heard, understood. "My name is Daniel. I'm with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Do you understand what that means?" Kaylin's head tilted slightly the way a dog might when hearing something interesting. "Law," it said. The word coming easier this time. "You lawman. Jesus Christ." It understood the concept of law enforcement. I glanced at the tape recorder, making sure it was catching everything, then looked back at Kaylin. "That's right. I enforce the law. I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay?" A long pause, then questions. Then what? The intelligence in those three words hit me like a physical blow. Kaylin wasn't just communicating, it was negotiating. It understood that this was a transaction, that cooperation might lead somewhere, and it wanted to know the terms before proceeding. "I don't know yet," I said, because lying to it felt wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. "Right now you're being held because the people who found you don't know what you are. They're scared. They want to understand you." "Understand?" Kaylin's massive chest heaved with what might have been a sigh, cut open. "Understand inside." My blood went cold. "You know what they want to do, smell fear on short man, Dr. Woman. They fight for me." Kaylin's English was broken, heavily accented by whatever its native language was, but the meaning was crystal clear. "Smell death on soldiers." "They want the want autopsy," I supplied. "They want to perform an autopsy to study your body after you're dead." "Yes, autopsy." Kaylin pronounced it carefully, filing the word away. "I know human words. Listen, long time. 90 winters." I listened. Human words. I had to process that. 90 winters, 90 years. If Kaylin was telling the truth, it had been born around 1902, had lived through both world wars, the Great Depression, the Atomic Age, the Cold War. It had been watching us, listening to us, learning our language while hiding in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. "Why reveal yourself now?" I asked. "Why surrender to the soldiers?" Kaylin's eyes, they were brown, I noticed. A deep brown that looked remarkably human, despite the pronounced brow ridge above them. Dropped to the table. "My people dying. Fewer every year. Human cut forest. Human build road. Human come everywhere. Used to be. Used to be we hide easy. Nowhere to hide. The tape recorder spools kept turning, preserving every word for the analysts who would dissect this conversation for decades. I needed to keep Kaylin talking, needed to establish not just that it could communicate, but that it had culture, history, society, anything that would prove to the military brass that this was a person, not a specimen. Your people, I said. How many are there? Once, many hundred when I born, maybe 300. Now, Kalen's voice dropped to something almost like a whisper. Now maybe 40, maybe less. Hard to know. We spread out years between seeing others. 40. An entire species reduced to 40 individuals, scattered across the wilderness of North America, slowly going extinct while humanity paved over their habitat. The tragedy of it settled over me like a weight. The soldiers who found you, I continued, you could have run. You're fast, strong, you could have disappeared into the forest. Why didn't you? This was the crucial question, and I think Kalen knew it. The creature's hands unclenched from the table, and it sat back in the reinforced chair that groaned under its weight. When it spoke again, the words came slower, more carefully chosen. Tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of watching my people fade away like morning fog, Kalen's accent made the poetic phrasing even more striking. I think maybe if human know we real, we think we feel, maybe human help, maybe human, let us live in peace and forest that left. That's a big gamble, I said quietly. Humans don't always react well to things. We don't understand. I know I watch human, long time watch. Human, though other human, for different skin, different words to God, different ideas met mine again. And there was something ancient in that gaze, but I also watch human save whale, save eagle, make parks for trees and animals. Human can destroy and human can protect. I gamble, you choose, protect. The room felt too small. Suddenly, this wasn't just about xenobiology or cryptozoology anymore. This was about whether humanity could look at something fundamentally other and choose compassion over dissection, preservation over exploitation. Tell me about your people, I said, your culture, your history. Help me understand who you are, not just what you are. And Kalen began to talk. For the next 6 hours, with breaks only to allow Kalen water and food, it preferred raw vegetables and nuts. I noted for the record I listened to a history that predated European colonization of North America. Kalen's people called themselves the Sask, which meant roughly the forest walkers, in a language that had no written form. They were not animals. They had social structures, family bonds, burial customs. They mourned their dead. They taught their young. They had stories passed down through generations about the time before humans came, when the forests stretched unbroken from coast to coast. They knew about us, had all was known. They'd watched the indigenous peoples of the Americas for thousands of years, sometimes trading with them, sometimes even speaking with them. The tribes had known the Saskat, had incorporated them into their mythologies and traditions. But when the Europeans arrived with their guns and their diseases and their relentless expansion, the Sassets had retreated deeper into the wilderness, had made a collective choice to become legend rather than face extermination. We see what humans do to tribes. Kalen explained the words, coming easier now as it grew more comfortable with the language. We see smallpox. We see trail of tears. We see reservations. We decide better to be myth than to be conquered. The overhead fluorescent lights hummed. The tape recorder had gone through 3 cassettes. My hand was cramping from taking notes, and I realized that I was sitting across from someone who had witnessed the entire modern history of American expansionism from the perspective of those being displaced. You said you've listened to humans for 90 years, I said, circling back to something that had been nagging at me. What have you learned about us? Kalen was quiet for a long moment. Then you want true answer. Yes. Human are most dangerous animal ever live on Earth, Kalen said flatly. Not because you strong or fast, because you never satisfied. You always want more land, more food, more things, more power. You kill everything around you and call it progress. The words hung in the air like an indictment. I couldn't argue with them. But Kalen continued, and I heard something different in its voice now. Something that might have been hope or might have been desperation. Human, also only animal that can choose to be different. Only animal that can look at destruction and say no more. Only animal that can change. Question is, will you? Before I could respond, there was a sharp knock on the interrogation room door. Colonel Hendricks entered, his face grim. "Agent Cross, we need you outside now." I glanced at Kalen, who sat very still, nostrils flaring as it scented the air. 5 minutes, I said to the colonel, now agent. In the observation room, chaos. Dr. Martinez was arguing with 2 men in suits I hadn't seen before. Their credentials, when they finally flashed them, showed they were from the Department of Defense, several pay grades above anyone else in the facility. The Secretary of Defense wants this thing transferred to a secure military research facility by 0600 tomorrow. One of them said, without preamble, all civilian consultants will be dismissed. This is now a matter of national security. You can't do this, Dr. Martinez said, her voice shaking with anger. We've just established communication. Do you understand what that means? It means we have a potential intelligence asset, the other suit replied, or a potential threat. Either way, it's above your clearance level now, Doctor. I looked through the observation window at Kalen, who sat motionless in the interrogation room, staring at the door I'd exited through, waiting, trusting, despite 90 years of watching humans destroy everything around them, that maybe this time would be different. I need more time, I said. You have until midnight, the first suit said. Make it count, midnight. I had until midnight to get whatever information Kalen possessed that might convince the Department of Defense that this creature was worth more alive than dissected in some underground laboratory. 6 hours. I looked at my watch, a Timex Iron Man I'd bought at a sporting goods store in Quantico, and saw it was 6:47 p.m. I turned to Dr. Martinez. What do they think Kalen knows? What makes this suddenly a DoD priority instead of a scientific curiosity? She exchanged glances with Colonel Hendricks, who looked like he'd aged 5 years in the last 5 minutes. Tell him, she said. The colonel pulled out a manila folder marked with red classification stamps. 4 hours ago, we received satellite imagery from the National Reconnaissance Office. They've been doing a routine survey of the Cascade Range, looking for, well, that's not important. What matters is what they found. He spread 3 photographs across the table. They were aerial shots, high resolution, showing a remote valley deep in the mountains of Washington state. At first, I couldn't make out what I was looking at, just rock formations and old growth forest. Then I saw it. The rocks weren't natural formations. They were arranged deliberately in patterns. These are structures, I said slowly. We think so, and look here. Hicks pointed to another photo. This one, with enhanced thermal imaging overlaid, heat signatures, multiple sources, living things, large ones in what appears to be some kind of settlement you found where Kalen's people live. We found one group, maybe 15 to 20 individuals based on the signatures. The colonel's jaw was tight. The Secretary of Defense wants to know everything about them before we make contact. Population, technology level, potential threat assessment, social organization, and he wants to know if there are more groups we haven't found yet. One of the suits, the one with steel grey hair and a West Point class ring, stepped forward. Agent Cross, your subject claimed its people have been watching us for 90 years. That means they've observed our military capabilities, our weapons development, possibly even classified operations in remote areas. They could have intelligence value we can't even quantify yet. Or said the other suit, younger, with the kind of corporate smoothness that suggested CIA rather than military. They could be a security risk, an unknown intelligent species living on American soil with knowledge of our activities and infrastructure. We need to determine their intentions, their capabilities, and their vulnerability to control. The way he said vulnerability to control made my stomach turn. I'd heard similar language in briefings about Central American insurgencies and Middle Eastern tribal groups. It was the language of people who saw everything through the lens of power and subjugation. You want me to interrogate Kalin about how to neutralize his entire species? I said, we want you to gather actionable intelligence. The gay-haired suit corrected, how you frame your questions is up to you. But understand this, Agent Cross. If we don't get satisfactory answers, the fallback plan is to study the specimen we have and then sterilize the site we've located. We can't have an unknown variable this close to strategic installations. Strategic installations. Dr. Martinez's voice was sharp. It's the middle of the goddamn wilderness. There's a decommissioned early warning radar station 40 miles from that valley, the suit replied, and a fiber optic trunk line that carries encrypted military communications passes within 20 miles. The wilderness isn't as empty as civilians think. Doctor. I looked back through the observation window. Kalin hadn't moved, still sitting in that patient, almost meditative stillness. 90 years of watching, listening, learning, and now humanity was about to decide whether to study it or exterminate it. And everyone liked it. I need something. I said, if I'm going to do this, I need leverage. Something I can offer Kalin in exchange for cooperation. You're not authorized to negotiate. Then you're not going to get what you want, I interrupted. Kalin isn't stupid. It knows what's happening here. It can smell the fear, the aggression. You want intelligence. I need to establish trust, and trust requires reciprocity. The two suits looked at each other. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Finally, the gay-haired one nodded. Limited immunity for information. If the subject provides intelligence that leads to peaceful contact with its people, we'll guarantee its survival and humane treatment. But Cross, if the information suggests they're hostile, all bets are off. It wasn't much, but it was something. I grabbed my legal pad and headed back to the interrogation room. Kalin's head turned the moment I entered, those deep brown eyes tracking me as I sat down across the metal table. The creature's nostrils flared again. That constant scenting of the air that I was beginning to realize provided as much information as sight or hearing. You smell different now. Kalin said, more fear, more anger. What happened out there? I decided on honesty. They found your people. Thermal imaging satellites spotted a group in the Cascades, maybe 20 individuals. The government wants to know everything about them before they make contact. I watched Kalin's reaction carefully. The massive hands clenched briefly, then deliberately relaxed. The breathing pattern changed deeper, slower, like someone exercising conscious control over their emotional response. It was remarkable to watch a non-human intelligence apply what looked like mindfulness techniques. How long before soldiers come to Valley? Kalin asked quietly. I don't know. Days maybe, but Kalin, there's a window here. If you help them understand your people, if you can prove you're not a threat, they might choose peaceful contact instead of, I didn't finish the sentence. Instead of killing us all, Kalin said it flatly without drama. Yes, I understand. This is why I surrender. Better I teach you about us than you learn by cutting us open. The creature leaned forward, and I had to resist the urge to lean back. This close, I could see the intelligence in every micro-expression, the way thoughts moved behind those eyes like clouds across the sky. What do you want to know, Daniel? I opened my legal pad to a fresh page. Start with your social structure. The people in that valley, are they a family group, a tribe? How are you organized? We call it a clan. Blood family, yes, but also chosen family, Saskets mate for life, like your wolves or your swans. When young are born, entire clan raises them. Everyone teaches, everyone protects. Kaylin's broken English had a rhythm to it. Now almost musical clan and valley probably has elder, oldest and wisest, usually female. She makes decisions for group, settles disputes, keeps history. Matriarchal, I noted. The elder is always female, usually. Females live longer, carry more memory. Males are, how you say, more impulsive, better hunters, but worse planners. Something that might have been humor crossed Kaylin's face. I am bad, Saskat. Too curious, too willing to take risk, elder of my clan tell me many times. Kaylin, you think too much about humans. Not enough about staying safe. She was right. I wrote quickly, trying to capture everything. Where is your clan? Are you from the group in the Cascades? No, my clan far north, British Columbia, you call it. Canadian forest near coast. I traveled south many years ago to scout, to watch human cities grow, see how close they come to our territories. I was supposed to return with information. Kaylin's voice dropped. That was 8 years ago. I never go back. Why not? The creature was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something raw in its voice. I find female different clan living in Olympic mountains. We mate. We have daughter Kaylin's massive hands opened and closed on the table. Then loggers come. They cut section of old growth where we nest. My mate, she go to stop them, try to scare them away. They shoot her. She fall from tree break neck. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, I said and meant it. Daughter was 2 years old, too young to survive alone. I tried to take her to her mother's clan. But Kaylin's voice cracked, the words distorting. She gets sick. Human sickness. Maybe from contaminated stream near logging camp. She die in 3 days. I bury her in forest in old way. Then I have nothing, no mate, no child, no clan, just empty. The tape recorder kept spinning, preserving this confession of grief from a creature that wasn't supposed to exist. I realized that tears were running down my face. I wiped them away quickly, but Kaylin had already seen. You cry for my daughter, the creature said, and there was wonder in its voice. Human cry for Saskit's child. I have a daughter, I said quietly. She's 8 years old. I can't imagine. I couldn't finish. Kaylin reached across the table slowly, telegraphing the movement. One massive hand extended toward me, palm up, an offering. After a moment's hesitation, I placed my hand in Kaylin's. The grip was gentle, careful, the hand of someone who knew their own strength and chose restraint. This is why I gamble on humans, Kaylin said, because some of you can feel for others, can see beyond tribe, beyond skin, beyond species. This is human gift and human curse. You can love everything or destroy everything. You choose which. I pulled myself together, withdrew my hand and refocused on the interrogation. The clan in the Cascades. What will they do when soldiers come? Depends on Elder. If she wise, she tell clan to hide, scatter into deep forest, wait to see what humans do. If she fearful, she might tell them to run far away, abandon territory. If she desperate, Kalin paused. If she desperate, she might tell them to fight against the US military. We are strong, Daniel, much stronger than human. Saskit's male can lift boulder that takes 3 humans to move, can run through forest and darkness without stumbling, can break bones with our hands. Kaylin's voice was grim. We would lose. We know this, but cornered animal fights, even when it knows it cannot win. Pride and fear make anyone dangerous. This was the intelligence the DoD wanted. I realized threat assessment. But what Kaylin was really telling me was that his people were desperate enough to be dangerous. which meant the situation was volatile in ways that could end catastrophically. How can we approach them peacefully, I asked. What signal would tell them we're not a threat? Kaylin thought about this carefully. Sask have gesture, sign of peace, open hands, palms forward while speaking aloud. We show we have no weapons. We make ourselves vulnerable. We announce ourselves. But what? But they will not believe human soldiers. Too much history of human lies. Too many broken promises to tribes who thought humans came in peace. Kaylin looked at me intently. Would need someone they might trust. Someone who has spoken with one of us. Someone who... The interrogation room door banged open. Colonel Hendrick stood there, face pale. We've got a problem. Big problem. Agent Cross, you need to see this now. I followed him to the observation room where a comm specialist had set up a radio receiver. Through the static, I could hear voices, military voices, tense and rapid fire, contact with unknown subjects, approximately 15 to 20 individuals displaying hostile behavior, requesting authorization to Dr. Martinez, grabbed my arm. They sent a reconnaissance team to the valley tonight without waiting for your intelligence. The gay-haired suit looked grimly satisfied. Time was a factor. We needed eyes on sight. You idiots, I breathed. You just forced their hand through the radio. Subjects approaching perimeter, weapons free. Weapons free. Do not fire unless fired upon. And then cutting through everything else, a sound I'll never forget. A howl, deep, resonant, full of rage and terror and defiance. Not one voice, but many, rising in a chorus that made every human in that room fall silent. Kaylin's people were about to go to war with the United States military, and I was the only person in the world who might be able to stop it. I didn't ask permission. I grabbed the radio handset from the comm specialist and keyed the transmit button. This is FBI Special Agent Daniel Cross. Authorization code Delta 7. Charlie 9 Reconnaissance Team. This is a direct order. Stand down. Do not engage. Repeat. Do not engage. Static crackled. Then a voice. Young and scared, sir. We have approximately 18 subjects surrounding our position. They're using the terrain tactically, flanking movements, coordinated. Because they're intelligent, I snapped, they're not animals, they're people. Do you understand me? You are surrounded by people who think you're there to kill them. Another voice cut in older, with the authority of a commanding officer, Agent Cross. This is Captain Wallace. I have 8 men in a defensive perimeter with unknown hostiles showing aggressive behavior. I need authorization to defend my team. I looked at Kaylin through the observation window. The creature had stood up, was pressed against the wall of the interrogation room, head tilted as if listening to something far away. Those howls were still echoing through the radio, and I realized with a chill that Kaylin could hear them directly. Not just through the speaker. The facility was underground, miles from the Cascades, but somehow the sound was reaching Kaylin anyway. They're calling to each other, Dr. Martinez whispered beside me, coordinating. This is sophisticated communication. I made a decision that would either save lives or end my career. Captain Wallace, I'm coming to your location with someone who can negotiate. Hold your position, but lower your weapons. Show open palms. Do not aim at them. If they see you as non-threatening, they won't attack. Agent Cross, I can't risk my men's lives on you already risk their lives by going in without proper intelligence. I cut him off. Now you do exactly what I say, or those things you're calling hostiles will tear through your defensive perimeter like it's made of paper. They're stronger than you can imagine. They know that terrain better than you ever will. And right now, they're terrified and angry. The only reason you're still alive is because they're debating whether to kill you. Give me a chance to change that debate. Silence on the radio. Then how long until you get here? I looked at Colonel Hicks. How fast can you get a helicopter to the Cascades? 30 minutes from here to Fort Lewis McChord. Another 40 minutes from there to the valley. Call it an hour 15 if we push it. Make it happen now. The gay-haired suit stepped forward. Agent Cross, you don't have authority to then arrest me when this is over, I said flatly. But right now, I'm the only person who can speak their language. And more importantly, I'm the only person they might be willing to listen to. You want to neutralize a potential threat. Help me turn them into potential allies instead. I turned and walked back into the interrogation room. Kalen spun to face me, and I saw something in its expression I hadn't seen before. Raw fear. They found Swiftwater Clan, Kalen said. The words tumbling out faster now. I hear Clan Elder. She is. She's calling them to defensive positions. She thinks soldiers come to kill them all. I'm going there, I said. I'm going to try to stop this before anyone dies. But Kalen, I need your help. Will they listen to me? To a human? Not to human. Kalen moved toward me, and despite everything, despite knowing this creature had chosen non-violence, my hindbrain screamed at me to run from something so large and powerful, but they might listen to human, who comes with Saskits, who has been vouched for by one of us. You want to come with me? I must come with you. Without me, you are just another human with weapons and lies. Kalen's massive hand gripped my shoulder, gentle but insistent. But Daniel, you must understand, if this goes wrong, if shooting starts, I will fight to protect my people. Even if that means fighting you. I met those brown eyes and saw the terrible honesty there. Fair enough. If shooting starts, I'll be fighting to protect my people too, so let's make sure it doesn't come to that. 20 minutes later, I was in a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter flying north through the night sky of the Pacific Northwest. Kalen sat across from me in the cargo bay, hunched over because the ceiling was too low for its full height. The crew chief and two door gunners kept glancing at Kalen with expressions that mixed fear and fascination. None of them had been briefed on what they were transporting, just told it was a classified asset crucial to national security. Dr. Martinez had insisted on coming, had basically forced her way onto the helicopter by threatening to call every congressional contact she had if they left her behind. Now she sat next to Kalen, a tablet computer in her lap, typing furiously, documenting everything, I assumed, in case this all went sideways and someone needed a record of what had really happened. I was wearing a tactical vest over my suit, more for the radio and gear pouches than for protection. Kalen had refused any equipment, said it would make the clan more suspicious. Instead, the creature sat in just its own skin and fur, looking like something out of a medieval bestiary that had somehow been transported into the high-tech interior of a military helicopter. My watch read 8:23 p.m. We had 3 hours and 37 minutes until the DOD's midnight deadline, and I had no idea what we'd find when we reached the valley. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled through my headset. Agent Cross, we're getting close. Captain Wallace reports his team is still surrounded, but the subjects are maintaining distance. No hostile action yet, but they're getting agitated. I looked at Kalen. What does agitated mean in this context? Means they are building courage to attack, Kalen said grimly. Young males will be urging Elder to give permission. They want to protect clan, want to prove bravery. If we do not arrive soon. The creature didn't finish the thought. The Cascade Mountains rose around us as we flew deeper into the wilderness, black silhouettes against a slightly less black sky. Down below, I could see the occasional lights of a logging camp or ranger station, tiny pinpricks of human civilization in an ocean of forest. This had all been theirs once, I thought, all of it. Before we came with our chainsaws and our roads and our certainty that the land was ours to take 2 minutes to LZ, the pilot announced. Ground team has popped IR strobes to mark their position. Through the open door of the helicopter, I could see a small clearing ahead, illuminated by the artificial moon glow of infrared light visible only through night vision equipment. 8 figures in tactical gear crouched in a rough circle. Weapons pointed outward and beyond them, just at the edge of the tree-line. Shapes moved in the darkness, large shapes, many of them. "Set us down 50 meters from the ground team," I ordered, "and tell them to lower their weapons before we touch down. That's non-negotiable." The helicopter descended rotor wash, flattening the grass and whipping the tree branches into a frenzy. As soon as we were 3 feet off the ground, Kane jumped out, moving with shocking speed and grace for something so massive. I followed, stumbling slightly on the landing. Martinez right behind me. Captain Wallace came toward us at a crouch, and I saw his eyes go wide when he got a clear look at Kalin in the helicopter's spotlight. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "That's really no time." I cut him off. "Your men need to show open hands, all of you. Weapons on the ground. Hands up, palms forward. Do it now, Agent Cross. I can't order my men to disarm in a hostile situation." Kalin let out a sound. It wasn't quite a howl, wasn't quite speech, but something in between. A long, modulating call that echoed across the valley. I felt it vibrate in my chest, felt it in my bones. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The shapes at the tree-line went still. Then, from the forest, an answer. A different voice, higher pitched, but equally powerful. The exchange went on for perhaps 30 seconds, this alien conversation happening right in front of us, while Captain Wallace and his team stood frozen. Finally, Kalin turned to me. "Swiftwater Clan Elder agrees to talk, but she says only you and I approach, others stay here. Any movement toward forest, any weapon raised and Clan will attack." I nodded and turned to Captain Wallace. "You heard the terms. Keep your people here and calm Dr. Martinez. You're in charge of making sure nobody does anything stupid." She grabbed my arm. "Daniel, you don't know what you're walking into. Neither did they when your recon team showed up," I replied. "Someone has to take the first step. Might as well be me." I followed Kalin toward the tree-line, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The forest seemed to swallow us whole. One moment, we were in the clearing with the helicopter lights. The next, we were in absolute darkness under the canopy of old-growth cedars and Douglas firs. I pulled out a flashlight, but Kalin's hand came down on mine. No light, they see better in dark. Light makes you target. So I walked blind, following the sound of Kalin's breathing and footsteps, trying not to think about how vulnerable I was. Branches brushed against my face. I stumbled over roots I couldn't see, and all around me I could sense presences in the darkness. The clan watching, evaluating, deciding whether I lived or died. We entered a small grove where moonlight filtered through a gap in the canopy. And there, waiting for us, was Swiftwater Clan. There were 17 of them, ranging from maybe 6 feet tall to well over 8 females and males, I guessed, though it was hard to tell in the dim light. And in the center, seated on what looked like a throne made of carefully arranged stones, was the elder. She was ancient. I could see it in the gray threading through her dark fur, in the way her massive frame had the slight stoop of great age in her eyes, dark and deep, and containing what looked like centuries of accumulated wisdom. She was smaller than Kalin, maybe 7 feet, but radiated an authority that made size irrelevant. Kalin approached her and performed a gesture I'd never seen before, a kind of bow combined with a complex hand movement while making a low humming sound. The elder responded with a similar gesture, then turned those ancient eyes on me. When she spoke, her English was far better than Kalin's. Each word carefully pronounced, almost without accent. "You are the human who speaks with Kalin, who offers paper promises of safety." Her voice was like wind through caves, like water over stone. I am she who remembers the long cold. I have lived 143 winters. I have watched your people spread across our lands like wildfire. I have watched my people diminish from thousands to dozens. And now you come with flying machines and weapons and ask us to trust you. I took a breath. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Elder, I can't speak for all humans. I can only speak for myself. I came here tonight because I've spent 6 hours talking with Kaylin. And I've learned that your people are not animals or monsters. Your people, you think, you feel, you love, you grieve. You deserve to live in peace. Deserve. She who remembers the long cold made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh. Many deserve peace. Few receive it. What makes you think humans will give us what they have not given to their own kind? Because some of us are trying to be better, I said. Because some of us are tired of the killing and the taking. Because I realized I was making speeches when what she wanted was truth. Because I have a daughter and I want her to grow up in a world where we don't destroy everything we don't understand, where we can look at someone different from us and choose compassion instead of violence. The elders studied me for a long moment around us. The clan waited in absolute silence. Kaylin says, "You cried for his daughter, for a child you never met, of a people you did not know existed." She leaned forward. "This is why I agreed to speak with you. Tears cannot be commanded. Grief cannot be faked. You showed heart when you thought no one important was watching. She stood and even stooped with age. She was imposing. I will make bargain with you, Daniel Cross. I will trust you with truth. Truth about my people, our numbers, our territories, our history. Truth that could be used to hunt us to extinction, and you will take this truth to your leaders and convince them we are worth protecting. And if I can't convince them, then we scatter. We disappear into forests so deep your satellites cannot find us. We fade back into myth and legend. And maybe in another 100 years, when humans have grown wiser, we try again. She who remembers the long cold's eyes held mine. Or maybe we are last generation of sass, and when we die, we take our songs and stories and 1,000 years of knowledge into darkness with us. This is gamble we all take tonight. Behind me, I heard movement. I turned to seek Captain Wallace, and 2 of his men had moved forward. We're now at the edge of the grove. They'd probably been worried about me, had come to check if I needed backup. But the clan saw it as a breach of agreement, as a threat. 3 Saskatchewan males moved to intercept them with terrifying speed. I heard weapons being raised, heard Captain Wallace shouting orders, and I knew with absolute certainty that I had about 3 seconds to prevent a bloodbath. I did the only thing I could think of. I stepped between the 2 groups and spread my arms wide, palms forward, making myself the most vulnerable target in the clearing. Stop. My voice cracked with the force of it. Everyone stop. The SAC's males froze mid-stride. Captain Wallace's men had their M4 carbines halfway to their shoulders. For a moment, the entire forest held its breath. "Captain, lower your weapons and back away," I said, keeping my voice level. Despite the adrenaline screaming through my system, "That's a direct order. You breached the agreement by approaching. Agent Cross, we heard movement. Thought you might be. I'm fine, but I won't be if you don't back off right now. These people have shown remarkable restraint. Don't make them regret it." Wallace looked at the 3 SAS males, each one easily capable of tearing a human apart, and made the smart choice. "Fall back," he ordered his men. "Slow and easy, no sudden moves." The soldiers retreated toward the clearing. The Saskatchewan males watched them go, then looked to their elder for guidance. She who remembers the long cold made a small gesture, and they melted back into the clan circle. You put yourself between weapons and my people, the elder said, and something in her voice had softened. You made yourself shield. This is second reason I will trust you. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together to hide it. Can we continue? For the next 2 hours, sitting in that moonlit grove while the temperature dropped and my suit jacket became inadequate against the mountain cold, she who remembers the long cold told me the true history of the Sask people. They were not related to modern humans, she explained. They had evolved separately parallel to Homo sapiens, but from a different branch of the hominid tree. While humans had developed agriculture and cities and complex technology, Sas had refined a different kind of intelligence, one based on deep ecological knowledge, sustainable living, and oral tradition that could preserve information across centuries. We are not primitive, the elder said. We chose this way of life. We watched early humans build cities in Mesopotamia, watched them develop writing and mathematics and engineering. We could have done same, but we saw cost, saw how cities required armies to defend them, required conquest to feed them, required slavery and war and endless growth. We decided better to remain in balance with forest than to own forest and destroy it. She told me about Saskat's culture, their complex kinship systems, their seasonal gathering places where different clans would meet to share knowledge and find mates, their system of justice based on consensus and restoration rather than punishment. She told me about their relationship with indigenous peoples of North America, how they had traded with tribes, sometimes intermarried with them, existed in a state of mutual respect for thousands of years. When Europeans came, everything changed. She continued, "The diseases killed many of us too. We have similar biology to humans, close enough that your sicknesses affect us, smallpox, influenza, measles. We had no immunity. Entire clans died in single season." She gestured to the assembled Saskis around us. Swift Water Clan was once 60 strong, now 17. Across all of North America, we number less than 100, maybe as few as 60. We are not sure because clans are scattered, isolated. Some we have not heard from in decades. They may be dead or hiding so deep they cannot risk contact even with their own kind. The weight of it settled over me. An entire intelligent species reduced to perhaps 100 individuals, invisible and dying while the world went on around them completely unaware. "Why reveal yourselves now?" I asked. Kalin said he was tired of hiding, but there must be more to it than that. The elder's ancient eyes found Kalin, who sat respectfully at the edge of the circle. Kalin lost everything. Mate-child clan. When you have nothing left to lose, you take risks that others cannot, he thought. Maybe if one of us dies, showing humans we are real, others might survive because of it. "I didn't plan to die," Kalin interjected quietly, "but I was willing to thought maybe human scientists would be gentle, would want to study living Saskits, not dead one." I was. The creature made a sound that might have been a self-deprecating laugh. "I was optimistic and nearly got dissected for your optimism," the elder said, but there was fondness in her voice. Kalin always was too curious about humans. Even as young one, he would sneak close to campgrounds, listen to stories around fires. I used to scold his mother for not controlling him better. The casual domesticity of the comment struck me. This wasn't some mysterious forest monster. This was someone's nephew, someone's clan member, part of a family and community that cared about him. "What do you need?" I asked the elder. "Not want, need to survive as a people. What would it take?" She who remembers the long cold considered this carefully. Protected territory large enough for a sustainable population, at least 10,000 square miles of old-growth forest. connected corridors between clan territories, legal protection from development, logging, human encroachment, medical access. Your doctors could help us, teach us to treat diseases that we have no immunity against. And she paused. And recognition, acknowledgement that we exist, that we are people, that we have rights, not as animals to be managed, but as what is word, indigenous people of this land. You want sovereignty. I said, we want to exist, she corrected. Sovereignty is human concept. We just want our children to have forest to live in, food to eat, safety to grow old, simple things every parent wants. I looked at my watch. 11:17 p.m., 43 minutes until the Department of Defense's deadline. 43 minutes to figure out how to sell the U.S. government on protecting an unknown species that most people thought was a myth. I need to make some calls, I said, and I need you to come with me back to the facility. You and Kaylin both. If they hear this directly from you, if they can see you're not a threat, you want me to walk into cage, the elder said flatly. I want you to walk into negotiation, I replied. With me standing next to you, advocating for your people, with Dr. Martinez documenting everything with the weight of scientific evidence and moral imperative, forcing them to see you as more than a specimen, and if they refuse, if they decide to lock me up with Kaylin, I met her eyes, then I'll spend the rest of my career fighting to get you out. I'll leak the story to every journalist I can find. I'll make this the biggest scandal since Watergate. I'll make it impossible for them to hurt you without the entire world knowing what they did. She who remembers the long cold studied me for a long moment. Then she turned to the clan and spoke in that beautiful complex language of theirs, all vowels and rhythmic patterns that sounded like music. The clan responded, a discussion happening too quickly for me to follow, even if I could understand the words. Finally, she turned back to me. Clan says I am too valuable to risk. Says Swiftwater needs elder. Cannot lose ancient knowledge if I am killed or imprisoned. But Kalin has volunteered to return with you, and she gestured to one of the younger SAS, a male who stood perhaps 7 feet 2 inches. This is Storm Voice, my grandson. He is young, only 34 winters, but he is brave and speaks good English. He will come also. 2 voices are better than 1. Yes, I nodded, relief flooding through me. Yes, thank you. Do not thank me yet, Daniel Cross. We are trusting you with our lives. If this goes wrong, if humans choose cruelty over compassion, you will have to live with knowledge that you led us to slaughter. The weight of those words stayed with me as we hiked back to the clearing. Kaylin and Storm Boys walked on either side of me, 2 massive figures who could have killed me with casual ease, but instead were placing their futures in my hands. Behind us, the Swiftwater clan disappeared into the forest like ghosts, there one moment and gone the next. Captain Wallace and his team had formed a proper perimeter around the clearing, but their weapons were slung, not ready. Dr. Martinez rushed toward me the moment I emerged from the tree-ine. Thank God, she breathed. We heard you shouting, heard movement, thought she stopped when she saw a Storm Voice. There is another one, Dr. Martinez. This is Storm Voice. He's she who remembers the Long Cold's grandson. He's volunteered to come with us to the facility. Storm Voice performed that same gesture. Kaylin had used the bow with the hand movement, and in a voice deeper than Kaylin's but clearer, said, Honor to meet human scientist who fights for my people. Grandmother says you have good heart. Dr. Martinez looked like she might cry. Instead, she pulled out her tablet and immediately started taking notes. I have about 10,000 questions, she said. Ask them on the helicopter, I replied. We have 38 minutes to get back to Quantico and convince the Department of Defense not to do something catastrophically stupid. The flight back was surreal. Stormboyce had never been in an aircraft before, and watching a 7-foot-tall Sask experience wonder and terror at helicopter flight while trying to maintain dignity was oddly touching. Kaelin sat next to his younger companion, speaking to him in their language, probably explaining what was happening, reassuring him. Doctor. Martinez interviewed Stormvoice the entire flight, her tablet filling with notes about SAS's biology, culture, history. The crew chief had stopped looking nervous and started looking fascinated. Even Captain Wallace, who'd nearly precipitated a firefight an hour earlier, was listening to Stormvoice's answers with the expression of someone whose worldview was being fundamentally reorganized. We landed at Quantico at 11:51 p.m., 9 minutes to deadline. I practically ran into the facility, Kaelin and Stormvoice following Dr. Martinez, keeping pace while simultaneously sending her notes to someone, probably every scientific institution she had contacts with, creating redundancy in case the government tried to bury everything. The observation room was crowded. The 2 Department of Defense suits were there along with Colonel Trix and a half-dozen new faces I didn't recognize, but whose bearing and credentials suggested very high clearance levels, and sitting at the head of the table, reviewing documents with an expression of intense concentration, was a woman I recognized from television, Dr. Evelyn Foster, the President's science advisor. She looked up when we entered, and her eyes widened at the sight of Kaelin and Stormvoice. Agent Cross, I assume. Your reputation for dramatic timing is well earned, Dr. Foster. I didn't expect. The President asked me to personally assess this situation, she interrupted. What you've stumbled onto has implications that go far beyond national security or scientific curiosity. This is about what kind of nation we want to be, what kind of species we want to be. She gestured to Kaelin in Stormvoice. Please introduce me. For the next hour past midnight and into the early morning hours of September 20th, 1992, we talked, or rather Kaelin and Stormvoice talked, and Dr. Foster listened with the kind of attention that told me she was actually hearing them, not just processing them as data points. They told her about the declining population, about the loss of habitat, about watching their world shrink year by year while humans expanded into every remaining wild space. Stormvoice spoke about growing up knowing he might be part of the last generation of his people, about the weight of carrying ancient knowledge with no one to pass it to. And then Kaelin said something that changed everything. Dr. Foster, humans pride themselves on science, on knowledge, on discovery. We have watched you for thousands of years. We have knowledge about these forests, about plants and animals and ecosystems that your scientists do not possess. We know which plants cure sickness, which roots can heal wounds that your antibiotics cannot touch. We understand weather patterns, animal migrations, forest fires in ways that come from 10,000 years of observation. Kaelin leaned forward, and I saw the intelligence blazing in those eyes. You can dissect us and learn about our bodies, or you can work with us and learn about your world. One path gives you dead specimen. Other path gives you living library of knowledge that could help humans survive what is coming. What is coming? Dr. Foster asked quietly. Climate change, Stormboy said, and hearing that phrase from assessets in 1992, years before it would become common discussion, was jarring. Forests changing, weather changing, we see it, animals see it, trees see it, humans see it too. But do not want to believe we can teach you how to live with changing world instead of fighting it, how to be part of forest instead of enemy of forest. Dr. Foster was silent for a long time. Finally, she turned to the DoD suits. Gentlemen, I'll be recommending to the President that we classify this entire situation under a new category of protected status. These individuals and their people will be designated as indigenous persons with full human rights protections under international law. The territories they occupy will be designated as protected wildlife corridors with additional security provisions. Dr. Foster with respect. That's a decision far above. I'm aware she cut him off, which is why I'll be meeting with the president at 600 hours to make the case personally. In the meantime, these individuals are under federal protection. Anyone who harms them will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Are we clear? The gay-haired suit looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Dr. Foster's expression stopped him. Crystal clear, ma'am. She turned to me. Agent Cross, you'll be the primary liaison between the Sask people and the federal government. Congratulations. You just became the first human ambassador to a non-human intelligence. Don't screw it up. I looked at Kaylin, who looked back at me with an expression that might have been hope or might have been cautious optimism. I'll do my best. 3 decades have passed since that September night in 1992. The world knows about the Sask now. The story broke in 1994, after 2 years of careful diplomatic groundwork. There was panic at first, denial, then slowly acceptance. The Swift Water Preserve was established in 1995. 10,000 square miles of protected old-growth forest in the Cascades. Other preserves followed in Canada, in the Pacific Northwest, in the remote regions where clans had survived in isolation. The population has stabilized at around 200 individuals. It's not enough for long-term genetic viability, but it's better than the 60 we feared we were down to. Saskat scientists. Yes, they have scientists now, younger generation members who have learned human knowledge systems while maintaining their own traditional wisdom, are working with human biologists on conservation genetics programs. Kaylin died in 2019 at the age of 117. I was there when he passed in a hospital room specially modified to accommodate his size. He was surrounded by clan members, by human friends, by the hybrid community that has slowly formed at the interface between our species. His last words to me were, "You kept promise, Daniel. You showed humans can choose compassion. Thank you." Stormvoice is now an elder himself, leading the Swiftwater clan with the same wisdom his grandmother showed. She, who remembers the long cold, lived until 2008, long enough to see her people step back from the edge of extinction. I attended her memorial ceremony where clan members from across North America gathered to honor her memory and commit her knowledge to the next generation. As for me, I'm 66 years old now. As I said at the beginning, I retired from the FBI in 2013, but I've never really stopped working with the Saskatchewan people. I serve on the board of the Human Saskets Council, help mediate disputes, advocate for expanded protections. My daughter, she's 41 now, works as a wildlife biologist in one of the preserves, studying how Saskat, traditional ecological knowledge, can inform conservation practices. The revelation Kaylin shared with me that night, the thing that was so disturbing it was classified at the highest levels, it wasn't about humanity being evil or doomed. It was simpler and more profound than that. Kaylin told me that the Sask had a saying passed down through countless generations. The measure of a people is not in what they can destroy, but in what they choose to protect. For thousands of years, watching humanity spread across the globe, the Sask believed we had failed that measure. We chose destruction over protection, conquest over coexistence, short-term gain over long-term sustainability. They watched us drive species to extinction, wage wars over resources, poison our own water and air in pursuit of profit. But Kalin gambled that humanity could change, that we could look at something fundamentally other than ourselves and choose to protect it rather than destroy it, that we could hear wisdom from a non-human intelligence and actually listen. The terrifying part, we almost didn't. We came within hours of dissecting Kalin, within minutes of a military confrontation that would have ended with massacred SAS and traumatized soldiers. We were that close to proving Kalin's gamble was wrong, to confirming that humanity would always choose violence over understanding. What saved us wasn't superior morality or evolved consciousness. It was individual choices. Dr. Martinez fighting for scientific integrity, Colonel Hicks choosing to trust my judgment, Captain Wallace lowering his weapons, Dr. Foster seeing people instead of specimens, me crying for a child I'd never met and meaning it. Kalin's revelation was this: humanity's greatest danger is not that we're inherently evil, but that we're capable of both tremendous compassion and tremendous cruelty. And the difference between the two is nothing more than choice. Individual choice repeated across millions of people, either creating a world of destruction or a world of coexistence. We're still making those choices every day. The SAS's population is stable but fragile. Climate change is real and accelerating. The pressures on their habitat continue. There are still people who want to exploit them, study them invasively, or simply deny they exist, because acknowledging them would require uncomfortable changes to how we live. But there are also people, more people every year, who choose differently, who see the SAS as teachers, as neighbors, as fellow travelers on this planet, who understand that their survival and ours are intertwined, that protecting them means protecting the wilderness we all need to survive. I'm 66 years old, and I think about that classified transcript every day, not because of what Kalin revealed about humanity's nature, but because of what our response revealed about our potential. We were given a choice between fear and hope, between violence and compassion, between denying uncomfortable truths and rising to meet them. And for once, barely, we chose right. The question Kalin left me with, the question I'll die still pondering, is whether we can keep choosing right. Whether that night in September 1992 was an aberration or a turning point. Whether humanity can truly evolve beyond our worst instincts. I don't know the answer, but I know that somewhere in the Cascade forests, young Saskat are learning to speak both their ancestral language and English. I know that human and Assasset's children are growing up aware of each other, curious about each other, seeing each other as part of the same world rather than threats to be eliminated. And I know that Kalin's gamble, however terrifying, was worth taking because the alternative, a world where we dissected him on a table and driven his people to extinction, that would have been the real horror. Not what we almost became, but what we chose not to be. That's the truth I needed to tell before I die. Not that humanity is doomed, but that we're always just a choice away from either salvation or damnation, and that sometimes, if we're very lucky and very brave, we choose salvation. The Saskat are still here, still watching us, still hoping we'll keep choosing wisely. So am I.